The other day I was out with Chelsea going shopping, and I saw something that helped me craft a really good pickup line.
Okay.
So you can use this on Rhiannon as much as you need to.
All right.
Did you just put Vicks Vapor Rub on my eyes? Because when I see you, I see hot.
Okay. You'd have to have the perfect setting to use that line. I see hot. All right, man. I'm going to use that on my wife, probably.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
She'll love that one.
Oh, yeah. You know Rhiannon.
Yeah. She'll definitely roll the eyes.
Yeah.
No, kind of funny, random story connected to that. Chelsea's Lola, her grandmother in the Philippines, and her uncle, her Tito Alwin, when he was a little kid growing up, he kept on waking up in the middle of the night and coming in and like crying to mom and dad, waking him up, and they would ask like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." And then they'd take Vicks.
Oh gosh!
And then on his eyelids and send him back to bed. And he never came back.
I wouldn't come back either.
Yeah.
Like, Vicks Vapor Rub.
Yeah.
Like, how would you ever sleep then?
Yeah. Just punishment.
I know how to soothe him.
Shut that down.
Yeah.
Anyway, has nothing to do with the question I was going to ask, but
yeah.
How do you jumpstart a guy's heart?
How do you jumpstart a guy's heart?
Yeah. This is coming on the heels of some people I'm having interactions with, and some people from group that just feels like they're complacent, totally indifferent, lukewarm to making decisions and being agents in their lives for bettering it and living,
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's something I necessarily have a hard time with personally. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of things I get complacent about, but I always have at least this tinge of excitement about something that I can look forward to.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, and I don't...
Something to feel alive about.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to relate to somebody when they're just like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't really care.
Yeah, like what do you care about? What do you care about in your life? Like, oh, nothing. Like, everything's like, it's not like it's terrible, but everything's just, it's fine. Like,
just a gray.
It's like, what does your day look like? Oh, well, I wake up and I kind of get ready for work, and then I go to work, and then I come home, and then I watch TV, and then I maybe fight with my wife a little bit, and then I go to bed, and I wake up and I do it all over again. And then when you ask the guy, like, well, would you like something different? No. It's like, but you on the outside, like, this is what's hard about it is like, you on the outside are going like, there's so much more to you. Like, life could be so much richer, so much more full. Like, and maybe part of your question is when is it on us to be the judge of a guy's life versus how many guys do you know? And I think this is what you're really getting at. Yeah. Like, how many guys do you know that they almost like put on that veneer because they've lost touch with their hearts? And because to do the work to bring it back feels so overwhelming. It feels like such a daunting task that what they do is they just kind of settle. They just kind of like, well, it's not terrible, but, I can spend the next 50 years just sitting in my cubicle. Like, like, yeah, well, what's life anyway? Like, that's a tragedy, and your question is a good one, because that's something I'm constantly wondering about myself. Like, how many guys do we work with that are in that sort of just, what's the right word for it? Like,
malaise.
Yeah, they live like almost like a life of just, they wake up and they jump in a big tub of like
anesthetic every day. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just numb to the world. Like I just kind of coast through my life. When I believe and you believe that like God is actually calling them to something so much more than that, and that life itself can be so much more rich and vibrant and colorful than just that kind of grayscale sort of a place.
Yeah, even right now, we got out here and this was
Gray.
This was gray.
It was pure gray.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could probably see a little bit in the background, but the horizon's starting to spark up with some pink and orange, and it's getting really pretty. And I think that's a lot to do with how light works, and God infuses light and life into our lives. But one of the thoughts that I've had is I wonder how much of it do you think is connected to just personality versus, I feel like I've been classified as having a fairly extreme personality, and that I can feel a lot of emotion. I can feel heavy sorrow, but I can also feel immense joy, like to the point of crying, and everything in between. And I pursue things that I'm passionate about because they provide an emotional response for me. And even help me to kind of move through some different turmoils in my life. But I could attribute a lot of that to being my personality. Is it possible that some of the guys we're considering, or the trope that we're coming up with, is that it's somebody who's got kind of a low-key personality, a more laid-back personality?
Oh, 100%. I'm thinking of a couple of guys you're mentioning right now. I think there are some just naturally sort of kind of more calm, level, stable kinds of personalities and guys out there that is kind of more of just like their baseline. I think that's true. However, I even with somebody who's kind of got a calm, level, stable sort of like personality, there's a difference between living in this kind of numbed out, hollowed out husk of your own life kind of thing versus still living a life that seems to have some kind of meaning and purpose. I believe that every one of us was designed to pursue growth and meaning and purpose. And it doesn't matter what our personality is that's kind of hardwired into us. And I actually believe that most of the men we work with, even if they have those kinds of personalities, they also have the co-occurring problem of having lost their hearts, and there's all these reasons for losing your heart. You get the crap kicked out of you by life. You come in to some place and you take a couple good cuts at something, whether it's a business plan or your marriage or your relationships, and you experience some failures, you get the wind knocked out of you. It's hard to want to get back up and be like, that was fun, let's go do that again, and I think too often, too many guys end up sort of like Simba and the Lion King when he goes off with Pumbaa and Timon for Hakuna Matata, like, hey, no responsibility, no pressures, I'm going to let go of all of that stuff, and I'm just going to try to live in this space of like no worries, but in doing so, they also start to sell themselves short a little bit, and I believe that they're harming themselves because they're selling the world short of what they could offer the world, right? Like all these guys we know are awesome guys. Like they're really cool guys that are in some ways depriving the people around them of a more full expression of themselves.
Yeah.
And so the grayscale that's going on in their own lives is actually being perpetuated into the lives of the people around them that mean the most to them,
One of the things that I was hearing recently in a podcast is from Jordan Peterson getting interviewed by somebody, and he was talking about how pursuing truth and living in truth is what will lead to your greatest adventure. And one of the things that I kind of want to delineate is that adventure doesn't necessarily mean that you're off, jumping from helicopters and, kissing the girl at the bar, or like doing some kind of wild thing per se, as much as that you're just fully engaged in your life, and God's revealing all of the goodness that you have in yourself to you, and helping you manifest that goodness into the world for other people. And because I do think there's a little bit of a misnomer there. With some of the times that at least I get excited and passionate about things, it's not things that other people are passionate about per se. And to be able to clarify and say, hey, it doesn't have to be this. It's more about the process of connecting your heart to God and letting Him show you who you truly are, and helping you identify your own individual purpose, not Chase's purpose or Tyler's purpose. You don't have to become a therapist and help heal their hearts, or whatever it is for you and your unique path. So is that something? Do you think people get caught up in kind of misunderstanding what?
Yeah, I think sometimes when when you said, how do you like jumpstart a guy's heart? Yeah. Like you've seen me before, like want to like shake a guy or like yell at him, or I think I did that like this week.
I mean, it's a good thing it's over Zoom, or there'd be some.
There would have been like, dude, wake up, like get into your heart. Like I want to just grab him, like just shake him, and I want to squeeze their heart and just pump blood through it. Like come on, and so like I think because of that, maybe there is that like feeling like, oh, I better get out, jumping out of helicopters and doing everything else. I think what you're saying is actually more in line with things, and then here's where again I don't need to play God, and I shouldn't play God. But if a guy comes to me and he's like, hey, God made me like I am sit on the couch and watch TV and eat potato chips guy, like that's who God made me to be, I can't argue with that. I just happen to call bullshit. right so
I like how you say you're not arguing with that, but then calling bullshit.
That's my own. I'm just saying that's my own judgment, because I happen to just believe something different. So, but I believe every man. I believe every man, if he has the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and he has the willingness to wrestle with God, that he will systematically uncover parts of himself where God says, these are parts of you, and this is how I want you to use yourself as an instrument, right? Every single one of us is actually, our life experience helps with this, our personalities help with this, our intellect helps with this. It all comes together to form this perfect recipe of something that can provide something meaningful to the people around us in the world that we live in. And if we shirk those responsibilities, if you want to use the word responsibility, I hesitate because people hate that word, but like if you shirk the truth of that, you end up playing small, and you end up living a life that is at best numb.
Yeah.
And then you're looking for, and then that's where we run into guys that then have other things play out sideways because the numbness is there, and then they end up needing to either continue to numb, so then they pursue their addictions, or they're looking for something to give them a spike, but they pursue it in ways that are against their values, and then they end up feeling more miserable and the wind knocked out of them more, and then they go back to trying to be safe, and yeah, I mean, again, I'm not the judge. If you come to me and you're like,
although there probably will be some judgment.
Like, hey, Tyler, I am the guy who needs to know what it's like to just be on welfare, eat Twinkies all day. I need to know what it's like to be 450 pounds and be as sedentary as possible. God says, I am Twinkie guy. All right, tell me what you learn and serve your purpose, I guess. But I just don't think that's who God is. I think it's more likely that God's going to come to you and be like, hey, Chase, you're creative and you're passionate and you're social, and you're going to combine all of those things to do some good in this world, right? And anybody else listening to this, I believe that God is trying to reach your heart the same way He's trying to reach our hearts and systematically help us grow into something more. So
what does that look like?
Well, I think it's the willingness to put ourselves in the arena of wrestling with God, of doing an assessment of our lives and saying, like, what are my life experiences and the things that I've learned as a result of the things I've been through, hard things, trauma. Like, our traumas are actually the birthplace a lot of times for the most poignant parts of ourselves that we can grow into and offer to other people. Doing an inventory of our personality traits and then saying, okay, like, what are my strengths? My strengths are different than yours, right? And my strengths, my life experiences, and then, of course, what I believe are some confirmations and spiritual promptings that come from God, when they start to come together, you don't get it all at once. At least I don't. It's like these things get shown in
stepping stones.
Yeah, in little, like uncovering the layers of an onion. But when they all start to come together more and more, it almost becomes fun to go and say, what's the next layer? Like,
I prefer a parfait myself. You stick with that.
A Napoleon. but it's like this. It becomes fun. That's almost its own part of the journey. To be like, okay, like I am now in a vein of my life where I'm like, I like the mining that I'm doing right now. I like that I feel like I've got purpose and that God's showed me that, I can help people and I can help men become more, and yet something's going to happen that will say, oh, pivot this way or pivot that way or do this, and that'll be good because it'll be part of the growing experience, right? No, how do you get a guy to actually accept the truth of that? Like, I'm thinking of the Lion King thing again. Like, what gets Simba after he disappears, right? He's like, man, I'm a schmuck. I killed my dad. I'm going to disappear. He's in total shame. His trauma is just burying him. And so he's out numbing his life out, eating bugs in the wilderness and singing Hakuna Matata. But he knows deep inside, there's still that thing inside of him that knows there's more to life than what he's doing, right? Well, what gets him to accept the truth of his birthright as the one true king?
I'm gonna say it's Nala.
Yeah, Nala.
It's a little more than that.
Yeah. Nala is like Nala was his best buddy. Plus, she's hot, right? She comes and finds him, stumbles into him. They reconnect as friends, and she's kind of like the one that's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And then Rafiki comes along and smacks him over the head with a stick and is like, dude, like, you go reconnect to the truth, right? So then he has this spiritual experience. He has guidance from like this old wise one, and then he has this sort of like call up from someone who he really cares about and respects. And when he has all of that, he has this moment where he then connects to what does Mufasa say to him in the clouds? You've forgotten who you are, and in doing so you've forgotten me, right? Well, I mean, not to get too spiritual with Mufasa, but like, that's kind of what we do with God. We come to this earth, we were already built to be loved, we were already built to grow, and then the world kicked us around and we forget ourselves, and in forgetting ourselves we actually forget God. Sometimes we even wrestle with God, don't believe in God, don't even know if he's there anymore, think he hates us, maybe he's cursing us, when in reality the world has now dictated to us who we are rather than the truth of who we've always been. And we have to learn to accept the truth and start to shed the layers of the false things that the pain of the world has put over us.
Yeah. Man, so much going through my head right now, but one of the directions that I'd kind of be curious to go, might feel a little bit like an aside, but I've noticed in my own life and with some of the people that are around me that have become kind of more complacent, it seems like they were through religion a lot of the time given a mandate that was almost too much to bear. Like
too much responsibility.
And I don't know, and maybe this is kind of more about dialectic, but where I remember being younger and being taught it's incumbent upon me to save other people, to save lives. Like, I have to save people. And hearing that message over and over again, and not really hearing as much a message of like, this is being versus becoming again.
Yeah.
It goes back to that. Like, that you're good as you are. Keep, find the connection to God in just being me as the chubby little fifth grader,
Yeah.
Instead I'm hearing you have to change, you have to become more so that you can go save all these people. And then it becomes overwhelming of like, whoa, what a burden, because I'm not up to the task.
Yeah.
And if the guy that I'm the people that I'm looking to as mentors in this are either Christ, who's perfect, or some others who still seem unattainable and you don't see their imperfections, then how do you take a guy who has been kind of educated in that way? And I'm not saying that message is wrong per se, as much as sometimes in its perversion, it can be wrong, and apply too much stress and pressure. The urgency of like every action you take has to be for the betterment of someone around you, right? And that's kind of on the other side of the spectrum. Instead of it being like I'm complacent, and I don't really care about anything, it's I care about everything all the time. So much so that it's causing me anxiety. And guys go through life living that way for a while, and then they realize like, this is too much. Like, I'm gonna break. I will never live up to this bar. And they swing the other direction into this place of, now I'm just gonna numb.
Yeah, no, just like
I can't measure
settle
up to
for
that.
mediocrity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I talked about that perversion of those things. It's like, whether that comes from the outside, maybe a culture or a church or a parent or something, or I believe it actually a lot of times comes from the inside. What is the perversion? Like, the perversion isn't the responsibility itself. Right. That's where everyone wants to pin it on the responsibility or the outside source that gave the responsibility, right? But the perversion is actually the way that it's viewed. At least from the lens I'm hearing you talk, and at least from my perspective, the perversion, and I relate to this because I lived this way for a long time in my life. As soon as I save all those people, as soon as I'm good, as soon as I keep these certain commandments, then I'll be lovable. Then I'll be good enough. Like, that's the perversion. And I think the wrestle is all of us working to return from that perversion to the truth, which is, dude, you're already awesome. Like, because you just took this breath and you're a living, breathing being, and you're lovable, and you're special, and you have certain abilities and traits that are all coming together to make you just you. And boy, you know what? When you're that, like, you could save a lot of people. And the inside out goes, of course I wouldn't want to do that. Like, of course I want to be that person. Of course I want to do those things. But it's the acceptance of, I think you said it earlier, the acceptance of the truth that's already in us, which is that every single living human being is already, it's like stupid Kung Fu Panda. Like, when he opens up the Dragon Scroll, and what does he see? Like, he's been fighting to get this Dragon Scroll to find the secret of like what makes, the Dragon Warrior. And he pulls it open, and it's like this blank mirror. And then what does he say? It's like, there is no secret ingredient. Like, it's already built into us. Like, we already have the goods. We already have the makings of it. We need to accept it, and once we accept it, then we just choose to live according to those things, right? Like, so when you say the perversion, I think the world has this, like, so many, even us at times, like, I lose sight of these things. It's just natural, but we have scales over our eyes. We look at this world
We look at our own lives from an already tinted perspective, and we don't even know it a lot of the time, right? And we don't know that we could change the tint because we just live that way, right? And then life hurts sometimes. And if we look at it, and when life hurts, we look at it in certain ways, and then we have a tendency to continue to just accept the tint that's already been placed, rather than going, man, like, you're looking at it like, I'm thinking a couple of guys in our group, they literally look at life with, they just got these big blue lenses, and they're just like, everything is blue. Like, okay, like, my life, like, you know, what would happen if they just put rose-colored tint over the top of it instead? Like, the same world would be going on around us. It would just look and feel a lot different. Like, and we have the power to change the lens. We just don't even realize it because it's so hardwired into us sometimes. So pausing and realizing that we do have that power. You know, I'm getting on a tangent now, but you know, I don't know. I hope that answers your question, but
no, I do think that that's it, is finding the right balance between those things, and more than anything, pursuing the truth and being willing to accept the truth, in whatever form that's given. You know, sometimes I think it's a kick to the crotch, sometimes it's a warm embrace,
sometimes it comes in that form.
Yeah.